The Sangre de Cristo Conspiracy. Chapter 4. Whispers in the Marketplace. The sun was a molten coin beginning its slow descent towards the western mesas when Marshal Sam Hartwell dismounted Diablo in front of Elena Vasquez's trading post. The plaza, though still imbued with a nervous energy, was busier now than it had been upon his arrival. Trappers, their faces betraying a mixture of defiance and anxiety, clustered near the cantina. Mexican townsfolk hurried about their business, casting suspicious eyes towards the groups of Americans. Pueblo Indians, wrapped in their traditional blankets, observed the unfolding drama with an ancient, knowing stillness, their expressions unreadable. Elena's establishment was a sprawling adobe edifice, its weathered wooden portal wide enough to admit a loaded wagon. From within emanated a symphony of sounds. The clatter of goods, the murmur of different languages, Spanish, English, various Pueblo dialects, and the heavily accented French of a few lingering Canadian voyageurs, and the occasional burst of laughter, though that seemed more subdued today. It was, as Hartwell knew, the true crossroads of Taos, a place where commerce and secrets were traded with equal facility. He looped Diablo's reins around the hitching post. The scent of dust, cured hides, chili, and something vaguely sweet, perhaps tobacco or unrefined sugar, wafting from the entrance. Stepping inside was like entering another world. The interior was vast and shadowy, the only light filtering in from the open doorway and a few high, narrow windows. Shelves laden with goods lined the walls, bolts of brightly colored cloth, iron cook pots, traps, knives, sacks of flour and beans, barrels of whiskey, tools, beads, mirrors, and the stacks of beaver pelts awaiting shipment. Several conversations hushed as Hartwell entered, his tall frame and the badge glinting on his vest drawing immediate attention. He scanned the room, his gaze steady. He saw a few American traders he recognized from Santa Fe, their expressions guarded. He saw local Mexican merchants haggling with the stoic Pueblo man over the price of pottery. He saw Elena Vasquez near the back, behind a sturdy counter, engaged in a quiet but firm negotiation with two rough-looking men Hartwell pegged as Ciboleros, buffalo hunters, judging by their attire and the smell of wood smoke and old blood that clung to them. Elena looked up, her dark eyes meeting his across the crowded room. There was no surprise in her expression, only a calm, appraising look. She concluded her business with the hunters with a crisp nod, and they moved off, grumbling good-naturedly. As Hartwell approached, she wiped her hands on an apron tied around her simple but well-made dress. Her composure a stark contrast to the simmering agitation in the rest of the town. "Marshal Hartwell," she said, her voice clear and steady, carrying just enough to be heard over the low hum of the room. "I had a feeling I would be seeing you. Coffee?" "Gracias, Elena. That will be welcome." He leaned against the counter, taking in the myriad details of her domain. The meticulously organized account books, the small, intricately carved wooden box where she likely kept her personal takings, the way her eyes never seemed to miss a single transaction or whispered comment in the room. She poured coffee from an earthenware pot into 2 mugs, the brew dark and strong. A grim business at the Montoya's hacienda, I hear. It wasn't a question. News in Taos traveled faster than a roadrunner. Grim indeed, Hartwell agreed, taking a sip of the scalding coffee. It was bitter, not just how he liked it. Don Carlos was a man who collected more than just taxes, it seems. He also collected attention. Elena's gaze didn't waver. He was a man of ambition in a territory that offers many opportunities for such men. Some legitimate, some less so. He kept a journal, Hartwell said, watching her reaction closely. Mentioned a recent visitor, an American. Calls himself Mr. Smith. Interested in artifacts. Said he represented collectors from the East. Montoya met him 2 days ago. Maria, the servant girl, described him as having sandy hair and a nervous disposition. Elena took her time, sipping her own coffee. Mr. Smith. The name is as common as dust on the trail. But yes, I recall such a man. He was in here a few days past asking questions, not about trade goods, more about history, old missions, lost treasures. He had the look of a man more comfortable in a library than on the frontier. Yet, here he was. Did he mention Montoya specifically? Not to me directly, Elena said. But I saw them speaking in that corner. She gestured with her chin towards a secluded alcove partly hidden by a display of Navajo blankets. Their voices were low, intense. Montoya seemed agitated after the man left. This matched Maria's account and the tone of Montoya's journal. Did this Smith say he was staying or where he was headed? Elena shook her head slowly. Such men rarely advertise their lodgings when dealing in shadows. He bought a few supplies, jerky, a water skin, a new flint for his pistol. Paid in American gold coin, crisp and new. He could be halfway to St. Louis by now, or holed up in some jacal on the edge of town. She paused and then added, or perhaps he never intended to leave the valley at all. Hartwell considered her words. The Sangre de Cristo cache, Elena. Montoya believed he'd found it. Gold, religious artifacts, enough to make a man powerful, or a target. Or both, Elena said softly. The legend has haunted these mountains for generations. The Spanish hid it from the Pueblo revolt, or so the story goes. The church believes the religious items are sacrosanct, their property. The old Spanish families, those who trace their lineage back to the conquistadores, they whisper that it is their ancestral heritage. The New Mexican government sees it as a means to fund their territorial ambitions. And the Americans? She shrugged. Some see only the gleam of gold. Others, like your Mr. Smith, perhaps see history to be bought and sold. And the Pueblo? Hartwell asked, remembering Montoya's journal entry about the fear of outsiders. Elena's expression became more somber. The Pueblo elders view those mountains as sacred. The cache to them is a disturbance, a desecration of ground that holds the spirit of their ancestors, They believe such things are best left buried, lest they bring misfortune to all. She looked at him pointedly. It seems they may have been right. Hartwell appreciated her candor. She wasn't just an information broker. She was a keen observer of the cultural fault lines that ran deep beneath the surface of this territory. The alcalde. Well, he's convinced an American trapper pulled the trigger. The murder weapon appears to be a Hawken. Many men carry Hawkens, Marshal, Elena said, her voice dropping slightly as a group of sullen-looking trappers passed by the counter, their eyes lingering on Hartwell. It is a fine rifle. Eli Thompson carries one. So do half of his men. So do you, I believe. Hartwell met her gaze. That I do. And I also know that pointing a finger at an entire group based on the tool they carry is a dangerous path, especially now. Thompson is a man of his own code, Elena mused, as if considering the mountain man. He values his freedom and that of his men. He respects the mountains, and he has a certain understanding with some of the Pojoaque and Tesuque pueblos. He's not a man to kill for simple greed, Marshal, but if he or his men were threatened... She left the sentence unfinished. You think he's capable of organizing them if things get worse? Bear Thompson is capable of whatever he deems necessary to protect his own. He's a leader, whether he seeks the title or not. His network in the mountains is extensive. If one of his men was involved, he would likely know. And if they were not, he would not stand idly by while they are falsely accused. This was crucial. Thompson could be a powerful ally, or a formidable obstacle. Hartwell needed to understand which. A commotion near the entrance drew their attention. A young Mexican man, his face flushed with anger, was loudly accusing an American trader of shortchanging him on a purchase of ammunition. Voices rose, hands gestured emphatically. For a moment, it seemed violence might erupt. Elena sighed, placing her mug down. Excuse me, Marshal. She moved towards the argument with a fluid grace, her voice, though not loud, cutting through the rising anger. Hartwell watched as she spoke calmly to both men, her Spanish precise and firm, her English equally so. Within moments, the tension deflated. She examined the coins, spoke again, and the trader reluctantly produced another small coin. The Mexican man, mollified, nodded curtly and left. The trader grumbled, but returned to his business. It was a masterful display of quiet authority and mediation. Hartwell was impressed, and not for the first time. She returned to the counter, a slight frown on her face. As you see, Marshal, she said, her voice tinged with weariness. The air is dry, sparks fly easily. You handle them well, Elena. A faint smile touched her lips. It is my business to prevent fires, not to start them. Montoya's death is a wildfire already burning. And this Mr. Smith is a gust of wind fanning the flames, Hartwell said. If he's still in or around Taos, I need to find him. Any idea who he might associate with? Any other American merchants who arrived recently? Perhaps looking less like traders and more like, gentlemen adventurers. Elena thought for a moment, her finger tapping lightly on the counter. There was another man. He came in with the last wagon train from Missouri. Not with Smith, but around the same time. Kept to himself mostly. An older fellow, bookish. Asked about land grants, old Spanish archives. Said his name was Abernathy. Lodging at the Garcia house, I believe, on the south side of the plaza. It's a quiet place, perhaps a long shot, but men with unusual interests, sometimes they find each other. Abernathy, another name to add to the growing list. Thank you, Elena. You've been helpful. I wish for peace in Taos, Marshal, she said simply. Montoya's killer must be found, for the sake of justice, and to calm the waters. But justice must be true, not simply convenient. Her eyes held his, a silent message passing between them, a warning against hasty conclusions. He understood. She was, in her own way, as much an investigator as he was, sifting through the currents of gossip and fear, and seeking the truth. My thoughts exactly, Elena, he said, placing his empty mug on the counter. He settled his hat on his head. If you hear anything more about Smith or this treasure, you will be the first to know, Marshal, after I am. He nodded, a sense of grudging respect solidifying between them. There was an undeniable intelligence in her eyes, a resilience forged in this harsh, beautiful land. He also sensed a carefully guarded core, a depth of feeling that her pragmatic exterior usually concealed. And the thought was intriguing, and a distraction he couldn't currently afford. As he stepped back into the fading light of the plaza, the weight of the Sangre de Cristo conspiracy felt heavier than before. Montoya's journal had opened one door, revealing a glimpse of the intricate machinery of greed and ambition at play. Elena Vasquez had opened another, showing him the complex human landscape through which he must navigate. His next step, he decided, would be to pay a visit to Father Miguel Santos. The church, according to Montoya, had a keen interest in the treasure. And then, perhaps, this Mr. Abernathy. The threads were many, and Hartwell knew he had to follow each one, patiently, meticulously, before the entire tapestry unraveled into violence. Elena watched him go, a thoughtful expression on her face. Marshal Hartwell was not what she had expected. He was quieter, more observant than the usual blustering official sent from Santa Fe. He listened, and in a place like Taos, listening was a rare and valuable skill. She hoped, for all their sakes, it would be enough. She turned back to her accounts, but her mind was already sifting through the day's conversations, the faces in the crowd, searching for the faintest tremor that might indicate where the truth lay hidden.